Welcome. You're all very welcome here. We have a great panel, which I'm going to introduce in just a minute, and they're going to be showing some incredible case studies on some of the work that they're doing. What you just saw there was a glimpse of DTTT Global. So I would like to ask you to all put that in your diary, 4th and 5th of December in Helsinki, and we have a special promo code for everyone at WTM where you get €200 off. I think it's WTM 2019, but I might be wrong on that. And I hope we'll all see you there, because it's all about digital trends and best practices in the tourism industry. The second thing I want to say, before I introduce myself, is today's session is interactive. So I want to see all of you guys with your phones, on your tablets, on your computers, go to slido.com, and you can use the hashtag WTM19 and select the global stage when you're given the options, and you can ask questions to our speakers. So I want to see as many questions as possible. Don't worry if you're feeling a bit shy, we have plenty to discuss without your help, but it will be even better with your help. So I really hope that you guys will participate. So slido.com and then hashtag WTM19, sorry. And we'll be collecting your questions later on for a really good interactive discussion. Okay, so back to the program. My name's Nick Hall. I'm the founder of the Digital Tourism Think Tank, and in a nutshell, we work with destinations all around the world to help them see and be inspired by all the trends and developments that are happening in our industry, in particular in digital, but also looking at content and how everything is changing right now, as we know that sustainability has become one of the most important topics that we discuss here as an industry. But it's not what we're here to discuss today. That is something that's discussed in detail at our DTTT Global event, so I hope we'll all see you there. But today, we're going to be discussing new channels, new content trends, and partnerships. And I really couldn't have asked for a better panel to share ideas, share examples, and talk about this. We have something, I think it's fair to say that this year's panel is really quite different to all the other panels we've done before. So we have Lottie Norman from Contiki. She's head of content, and well, I'll leave you to tell the audience about what you've been doing in content, but it is different, and it's playing with new mediums, and it should really inspire you to think about how you might use your voice in the future. I'll say no more. We've got Meryl and Evelina from Visit Jersey and Strava. Well, they've been doing a magical product audience and new channel match, and I think this is a really great example of how DMOs can look outside of the industry and look at where actually they can really collaborate and join forces with other people who have really niche and defined audiences. And then lastly, we have Rosie Aerosmith from Tastemade. Rosie is going to blow your mind about social content trends and how people are actually sharing their experiences and getting inspired in today's digital content world. So a really great lineup, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. Let's give them all a round of applause before we get started, because I think they're very worthy of that. And if you can just keep that round of applause while we introduce our first speaker. So let's bring Lottie Norman, head of content from Contiki, onto the stage. And Lottie is going to tell us all about this great journey you've been on. So there is your clicker.
Thank you, Nick. Hi guys. So yeah, as Nick said, I'm here to talk about something which is quite new for us. This is the first reveal of it, so yeah, hopefully everything works. So we've actually launched a Alexa skill. So hands up if anyone has a Google Home or an Alexa at home. Quite a lot of people. So this was kind of the trend we saw. So we decided, let's build a skill and try and sort of engage with our audience with something quite useful. So the skill's called Pack My Bags. And first of all, before I show you a video of exactly what it is, I want to show you a video. I want to go through a little bit of why we've gone on this journey, and also then go through some of the challenges and some of the key decisions for anyone who's also looking at sort of what they can do with voice in general. So a little bit on who we are, first of all. We're a youth travel company for 18 to 35-year-olds. We've been around a while. We've been doing our thing since 1962. and we run over 350 trips across 6 continents. Our mission is connecting young travellers to experience the world, and we're all about local, unique and purpose-driven travel. And this was really important when talking about the skill, because we wanted to make sure that everything we created applied and it was resonant with that whole mantra. So it's very purpose-driven, and also really taps into the whole uniqueness which Contiki is as a brand. So I'll play the video, and then I'll take you on the journey.
Hi there, I am from the travel company Contiki. We are connecting young travelers to experience the world. We have over 350 trips across 6 different continents, all throughout the year. Let's help you get the best from your trip with us. Whereabouts are you going on your trip? Taking a tiki tour to the Taronga Zoo, or just getting lost down under? Then you'll love our packing list for Australia. Shall I read these items to you? Think about your sun protection while swimming. Have you got some ocean-friendly sunscreen? I'll add it to your packing list. The coral should be pink, not you. You can see all these items under lists in your Alexa app. If you think of anything else you need, simply say Alexa, add to my Contiki packing list. I have also just sent you an email with your packing list too. For more travel inspiration, you can listen to Contiki's podcast. It's called Out of Office. You can find it on Google, Apple Podcast, or on Spotify. Bye for now.
Cool. So that's a snapshot of the skill we've built. And I'm now just going to go through some of the different elements. There was quite a lot put into that video to try and showcase all its different features. If anyone wants to use it, you just say to your Amazon Alexa, you just say enable Contiki, pack my bags, and then you can use it. So why did we go on this whole journey around voice? So voice isn't really a new thing. It's just a new way of people trying to search, basically. So voice search is a growing trend, and one which is going to stick around, I think. So we've seen throughout the years the ways that people are searching has changed. Obviously, there's a lot of focus on mobile and mobile content. That's now for Gen Z just kind of second nature. So now we're starting to look at what we can do with this whole new voice generation. So smart speakers are becoming the fastest growing consumer technology. So we had a quick look at some of our key markets, the USA and UK. This trend is across all regions. It is a global trend. However, what we've seen is the USA's adoption rate is much higher than anywhere else. So before we started on this journey, one of the key things we had to decide was, there's quite a lot of home assistants now in the space. So which one should we start building for, and which one should we prioritize? So we did some research with our research agency, and looked at sort of our key audience and our key demographic to see which ones had the biggest market penetration. And as you can see, the Amazon Alexa is by far the most in use. However, the other ones are starting to creep up. So knowing this, what did we create a skill around? So it's all very well to say, let's create an Amazon skill, but we needed a topic. So we started to look at insights and data. So again, looking at some of our keyword research across all our regions, looking at some of our internal search behaviors as well, and then looking at our editorial platform, which is called 6.2. We started to identify the way people were searching and what they were searching for actually fed quite nicely into an idea for a skill. So we knew we wanted to be helpful, we knew we needed to be present, and we needed to be relevant. So there was no point just doing something for PR and it having no purpose. So this is kind of where we turn to with this whole idea of travel hacks and utility-based content. So we looked at a lot of our 6.2 editorial, and there's a little snapshot of some of it here. One of our highest performing editorial pieces was around which adapters should people pack for different different regions they travel to. So we looked at that. We looked at some of the travel hack videos we've been creating across social, and we really wanted to make sure that this voice skill wasn't a standalone piece and that it was integrated in all our other content streams. So we looked at all this content and we looked at what we could repackage and instead of reinventing the wheel a little bit. And this is how we got to the Alexa pack my bags skill. So it sounds quite simple, but the next big challenge we had was which destinations do we start building packing guides for? And then packing guides obviously change based on the time of year you want to travel. So with that in mind, we decided to choose regions instead. So we categorized all our trips into different regions, and then we built a packing guide for whether you were traveling in winter or whether you were traveling in summer. We then opened it up into a second screen integration, which you can see here. So this actually enables anyone who has the Amazon app, the packing guide will just display here and you can add features to it as you go. So once you've used the skill, you can then, if you remember something you want to add, you can just say, Alexa, add XYZ to my packing skill, and it will all appear here. So this was second nature behavior for a lot of Gen Z and a lot of our target audience. The next layer we wanted to add is, as a brand and our brand philosophy, we're very passionate about sustainability and conscious travel. So in the idea of making sure that this was as useful as possible, we wanted to align it to our Contiki Cares projects, which was all around sustainability initiative, which has been around since 2014. So what we did is we decided to build a purpose, sustainable, conscious travelers packing guide, but then we didn't stop there. So every single one of our packing guides now has sustainable items, as you saw in the video. So things from ocean-friendly sunscreen right the way through to discouraging the use of single-use plastics. Then the next thing we wanted to do is we didn't want this just to sort of launch and it just be a PR initiative. So we wanted to align it and use it as a distribution channel for future activities. So how did we really engage this audience in everything which Contiki stands for and everything we wanted them to know? So visual storytelling. The next thing with Alexa is, as you've started to see, they have a second screen now. So we started using it as a distribution tool for a lot of our videos. So when you're on each packing guide, you can then see some of our most recent content, which from influencers through social, it will all display there. So it really does have that really immersive experience. It's also really strong for assisting image search, which is a growing trend and something which we can spend a long time talking about, but enables us to make sure that this is as discoverable as possible. Finally, as you saw in the video, we launched a podcast last year called Out of Office, and so we tried to align a lot of the destination guides to our podcast. So these are a few of our topics, some of our episodes. So the India's Female Revolution episode, we aligned to the India packing guide. Bagpipes to Hip Hop was actually a partnership with Visit Scotland, so we've aligned that to any Scottish packing guides. And then our sustainability one aligns to the sustainable one. So you can start to see the storytelling narratives, which we try to align to everything which the skill does. Lastly, email capture. So this was really important and quite easy to implement. Anyone who uses the Amazon automatically gives permission for their email address to be used as part of the skill. As soon as you say you enable it, we get that information. So we've obviously now got an opportunity to start engaging with these people, because we're very aware that you don't have to have booked one of our trips to use this skill. So we're doing the sort of brand awareness piece, but then we can also remarket and re-engage people by using their email address. And then finally, so a bit of a strange slide because we've only just launched, so don't know what the numbers will be. But the good thing about an Amazon skill is it is super measurable. So we can start to really look at the numbers and engage. And from us as a brand, we're really keen that this is an always-on activity and this is an always-on initiative. So we will evolve it further in 2020. And we really want this to sort of start to learn by the data, learn what people are asking for, and it should start to feed a lot more of our content strategy. And that's it.
Well,
First of all, thank you very much for sharing that. There's not many people who have, especially in travel, who have really ventured into voice, and I think done such a professional and thought-through approach that you've been doing at Contiki, and obviously you're at the start of that journey. So I know I have some questions which we'll discuss on the panel, but do we have some questions from the audience? Come on guys, don't be shy. I promised them sliders, so maybe they want to anonymously send their questions. All right, well, we're going to dip into that in more detail in the panel, but thank you very much for sharing that. Please join back at the panel. Okay, so next up, we are keeping the theme of technology strong. And how many people in the room have used Strava? Wow, not bad. That's a very fit and healthy audience then. I'm quite impressed. So many of you know what Strava is all about, but I'm guessing that none of you have seen Strava working with a destination. And this is set to be a very interesting story. I've known Meryl for quite some time now. She's head of product at Visit Jersey and has been very passionately developing the product offering in Jersey. And it seems like Strava has been the natural next step to taking that product out to the right audience. So please give both Meryl and Evelina a very warm welcome to the stage. And the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'm Meryl Laney, Head of Product at Visit Jersey, and I'm delighted to be joined by Evelina today. We're going to talk to you more about the Jersey Runcation Challenge and how we use Strava as a platform to target a niche audience. So this is me in action, pictured just over 8 months ago before I got a bun in the oven. As you can appreciate, I've slowed the pace down somewhat recently, and I'm less likely to be found chasing PBs than I can to be chasing around the office for a cross-off fix. But I'm pictured here taking part in the Standard Chartered Jersey Marathon. And this run, like many others, I captured using Strava. So whether it's been races that I've taken part in Jersey and overseas, my daily commute on the bike, to my weekly club ride, I've even tracked activities such as my ski holidays. And it's great to see there's a number of you in the room who are familiar with Strava. And you'll be familiar with the term, if it's not on Strava, then it didn't happen. And this is really where the seed of opportunity came into my mind as to the potential of working with a partner like Strava. So Visit Jersey were the world's first DMO to work in partnership with Strava to target the UK's running community with a bookable experience. So as we veer towards our ambition of reaching 1 million visitors by 2030, why shine a light on our sporting credentials? Well, we talk about Jersey as the island break, based on the power of the island to refresh and revitalise, reconnect and rediscover. Jersey is a place where you can come up for air. And with 24 beaches, over 500 miles of walks, we're ideally located only a 40-minute flight from London. We have 10 plus active events that take part throughout the year. And our unique microclimate really lends itself to the development of sports tourism. Our temperatures rarely fall below zero. And once you've built up an appetite, you can refuel in over 150 restaurants and stretch out your legs in over 35 attractions. So to give you a flavour of some of the events that we welcome to our shores, we have the RBC Super League Triathlon, now in its third year. This event attracts 50 of the world's best triathletes, and there's opportunity for you, if you're a fan of triathlons, to take part and race the same course as the pros. If you're keen and on extreme adventure, we have the Jersey Brecker Swim Run. This isn't for the faint-hearted. You will run over 47k, swim 6 kilometres and climb an ascent of over 1,200 metres. But starting in a 12th century castle, running past World War II fortresses, and with pristine sea swims, it's quite an adventure, but you'll need a buddy to keep you company along the way. And all for a good cause, we have the Durrell Challenge. This fundraises for the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust. So you can choose to fly around like a butterfly or adopt the pace of a tortoise, but you'll be in good company with Superman, Jersey's homegrown Henry Cavill. So, if you prefer to run your own race, we have a series of self-guided trails, whether that's on 2 wheels, on 2 feet, or exploring our hidden coves. So these are all great products, but do they make it a compelling reason to visit a destination? And when we look at the exam question, how can we galvanise what is effectively a niche product opportunity to act as a catalyst for Jersey's tourism development? So this is where we saw scope to really align the product to the promise, and this sits at the heart of all our product work. And we'll look now at how the Jersey Runcation really delivered this in practice. So it's about adopting an evidence-led approach to all that we do, and there's 3 key components to this. So 1, it's about finding the right distribution partner, 2, having a bookable experience, and 3, looking at the role of inspirational storytelling. I'm going to walk you through these each in turn. So firstly, looking at product opportunity, well, sports tourism can be a compelling reason to visit a destination, whether you're a spectator looking to watch your favourite rugby or football team, or looking as a participant to play a world-renowned golf course. From our perspective, there was opportunity to further develop Jersey's active and wellness product. And this responds to a global tourism trend where TripAdvisor have seen an 82% increase year on year in wellness experiences. And it's highly productive too. So typically the sports visitors will spend around £785 per visitor compared to £483 per visitor for all other holiday types. And in Jersey's case, it's enabled us to address seasonality. So at present, 3/4 of our visitors typically come to the island between April and September. And we're pretty full during these core summer months, operating around 90% capacity. So when we look at how we can drive productivity, the opportunity exists for us to really stretch into these shoulder seasons. And with our unique microclimate, with temperatures rarely falling below 0, this is where sports tourism really comes into play. So this is about harnessing your USPs to build signature experiences. Looking at channel fit, evidence has shown that online sources, personal recommendations and experiences are really those key influences in that holiday decision-making process. But it's important to look at how these various sources are used at what stages. And this is where social media is really key at that inspirational stage of the holiday decision-making process. It's important to look at how we can drip feed to achieve long-term conversion. And often visitors, when you ask them at what point did you choose to visit a particular destination, they'll struggle to put their finger on that precise moment. So we need to play to a prospective visitor's subconscious. In Jersey's case, there was also the need to look at how we could address that not-for-me view held by many, and also reverse that lack of awareness. So this is looking at how we can use a channel to connect with passionate communities in the place that they gather, and importantly, looking at how we can filter through the noise that we're bombarded with as consumers day to day. So this is about smart distribution, and this sits at the heart of our content strategy, and it's about putting the right message out at the right time to the right people across those channels that we pay for and those that we earn. I'm delighted now to hand over to Evelina, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about how Strava works with brands before we come back to the Runcation Challenge.
Great. Thank you, Meryl. It's fantastic to see that so many here already are familiar with Strava. For those who are not, I will make an attempt to give you a little bit of context as to who we are. The seed to Strava was sown in 1987 when our founders were a rowing crew at university. The camaraderie and the community that they felt being part of a sports team was amazing, and it's something that they wanted to build on further on in their career. And the years passed by, and along came all the social networks, and internet became something that we were all using. And all of a sudden there was a moment where they could actually take that idea, the community that you feel through sport, and bring that online, and actually ensure that someone who's in the US could actually connect with someone who is in Thailand, but they connect about a specific interest, their sport. So Strava's mission is to connect athletes to what motivates them, and we really want to help everyone find their personal best. It doesn't matter if you're a really fast 10K runner like Alistair Brownlee, or if you do a 10K in an hour plus. Everyone has a place on Strava. And our vision is to be the record of the world's athletic activities and the technology that makes every single effort count. Now, those in the audience that are familiar with Strava may think of us as a cycling app. And when we originally started about 10 years ago, that is the sport that we started out with. Why? Well, those that are cyclists in the crowd may be familiar with the cyclists being very into their gear. They were early adopters of the GPS device, which is essential for tracking. And a big part of Strava is the data illustration and the ability of track and analyze your training. That's a big part of it, but another really big part is the community. And I would say that majority of people on Strava are actually now today using it more for the community and the camaraderie and the kudos that you get when you run a tough marathon or you've done a training run on a Sunday when it's been raining outside. We are very much a global community. We're growing quickly. Actually, since I created this slide, we add another 2 million people. So we're 47 million globally now. We're adding around 1 million every month globally. We're in 195 countries, and majority of our athletes are actually based in Europe for the very reason that a lot of people, Europe has a very strong cycling community, and because that is kind of our core, or where we come from, that's also where we have a lot of our athletes. But that's not to say that cyclists are our only users. We're really growing in other disciplines as well, most notably in running, which is why this also was a very good fit with Jersey and the Jersey Runcation. But we also support in total 32 different activity types, everything from yoga to snowshoe walking, kayaking, and hiking. So there's a lot on there. And I think I was trying to count here really quickly. I wasn't fast enough, but 12% of all UK adults are on Strava today. So the UK is one of our real strongholds. And we're growing specifically within running, fueled by programs like Parkrun that is really extending running outside of like the elite group into the general kind of public. And people kind of refer to us like, oh, the sweaty Facebook, which is kind of nice to hear in a way, because Facebook has done some great things. But in some ways, we also really want to differentiate ourselves from Facebook. Strava will never be a platform built on ads. We really value the athlete's experience, and we place athletes in there, how they use the app and what they feel that they get out of the app at the forefront of everything we do. So we could have served ads many years ago, display ads, programmatic ads, and so on. We've decided not to. Instead, we found a concept called sponsored challenges, which is a quite unique experience for brands to engage with our audience in an authentic way. It's essentially a way for a brand like Jersey to go out and say, oh, hey, come and run with us during this month and do this distance, push yourself, go a little bit further, and also have the opportunity to give them a reward at the end of it. So it's sort of a win-win situation, like athletes get motivated to go a little bit further and brands get a way to engage with them in an authentic way. So authenticity is core, also in the terms of who we work with. Strava was always going to be more about just athletes and their communities. We always see that brands have a key place in how athletes are developing within their sport, how they are enjoying it and so on. But it has to be brands that make sense. So we're probably never going to see McDonald's on Strava. But someone like Jersey, where we know, as we've seen here from Meryl's presentation, where there's great opportunity for people to go out and do fantastic runs or rides or triathlons, it's just a great fit, and it's something that we really want to put in front of our athletes. So we're just going to have a little quick look at the Strava experience from going into a sponsored challenge, and Meryl will talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you. So people are constantly building out their bucket list of potential destinations to visit, and this is where getting Jersey on this list is really key to long-term conversion. So as you can see here, this is the in-app experience for the sponsored challenge for the Jersey Runcation. We invited Strava's UK running community to run 26 miles in 26 days over a 4-week period. The campaign ran for a 4-week period.
And here's just a little nod to those that already know Strava really well. You're probably familiar with the competitive element of Strava, where you actually can compete with others in your immediate community, your local segment in your park, but also within challenges. So there's also an opportunity for those that really like to race each other, as well as the individual that just want to do something for themselves.
So as we move on from looking at what it looks like as a desktop-based experience, why did this challenge work from Jersey's perspective? Well, as we've heard, it's the equivalent of the sweaty Facebook. So Strava for us, it provided a platform for us to engage with athletes as the social media platform for athletes. And it's, as a distribution channel, it has a positive and motivating force. It's enabled us to increase brand advocacy. So our brand's about being fresh, bold, spirited and fun, and this very much aligns to what Strava's core values are. From an audience alignment perspective, it doesn't matter whether you are racing or taking part, training in your first 5K, or whether you are a pro athlete. And this aligns well to Jersey's target audience, because we say Jersey isn't for the old or for the young, it's for those who have a zest for life. And so this is where it's very inclusive for us. It's about being the best version of yourself. And so as a platform, it's really enabled us to challenge perceptions about who Jersey is for. So all athletes who completed the challenge were driven to an inspirational hub on jersey.com. And they were then entered into an automated email journey where they were nudged down the booking funnel with the opportunity to win a prize for two, to have a holiday to Jersey with entrance into the Jersey Marathon. So this campaign was activated across our own social media channels, but we also collaborated with earned media, and we worked with the endurance athlete Sean Conway. He's best known for being the first person to run, swim and cycle the length of Great Britain, and you might know him for his crazy ginger beard. So this was a really great way to generate specific user-generated content around a particular product vertical or product area, in this case adventure. And from a PR perspective, it gave the media something new and on trend to talk about. Coming to look at the bookable experience element. So all athletes who entered into the Jersey Runcation Challenge received discounted entry into the 2019 Jersey Marathon, and they were also eligible to receive a discount on our hotel partner Seymour Hotels. Now, if their race calendar was already booked up for the year, we promoted the year-round product breadth. This was about promoting Jersey's 10+ active events and our self-guided trails that can be enjoyed year-round. Coming to look at the role of inspirational storytelling. So the Jersey Runcation Challenge inspired visitors to take on a challenge. And this is where we move beyond experiential travel that leaves our visitors with lasting memories towards transformative travel. And this is about leaving visitors feeling changed. And so it's about inspiring visitors to really have goals for the soul, because travel is no longer a hobby, but it's a badge that defines people. And this is really where we have complete alignment with the brand promise through the product. So looking at how the project delivered for us, well, from a marketing perspective, we had really high engagement with over 1.6 million impressions. This was a total of 2 million miles run by Strava's UK running community, which represented over 25,000 people going on to complete the challenge, with 10,000 converting onto Visit Jersey's channels. We had a high level of recall, with over 96% recalling the challenge. Looking at the outtakes, so this is the immediate action. So what did people do next, having been exposed to that activity? And I appreciate there's a lot of detail on this slide, but I wanted to share 1 or 2 points with you. So really, the volume of blue that you can see on this slide gives you an indication of the success of the campaign. But just to pick out a couple of those highlights, so over 90% of those exposed to the activity felt that it taught them something new about active events in Jersey, and endorsed that Jersey is a great place to enjoy an active weekend. But it's important to look at outcomes and look at the impact of our activity that we undertake, and not just measure vanity metrics. So looking at how the project delivered. So year on year, we've seen a 14% increase in those visiting marathon runners from off-island. Looking at how the activity contributed to our visitor economy, we saw an additional visitor nights of over 2,700, achieving an incremental spend of over 275,000. So it's important to look here, we're not looking at a significant investment sum in this activity, but it has delivered for us a return on investment of over 10 to 1. So some critical success factors as final thoughts if you're keen to explore a similar partnership. One, this is about being bold. So this is the first time we'd really explored a potential partnership like this. So you need to be willing to take risks and be prepared to fail. One of the key aspects as to why I feel this campaign worked is because it did come down to authenticity. There's that great product channel fit, and we had shared brand values and that common DNA. As with all activity as DMOs, we should be looking at how we evaluate based on the impact of our activity on our incremental visitor spend, and not just measure marketing metrics or vanity metrics alone. For this particular project, we developed a matrix-style working team to deliver the activity. This was a temporary structure, but it's about having the right skill set to deliver the project. It was a temporary-based structure, but it's actually something we're going to look at rolling out more with our activity as we move into 2020 and beyond. Finally, looking at partnership legacy, following this event, this activity, we've been delighted that we've been able to attract even more active events to Jersey's sporting portfolio. In October 2020, we will welcome Rat Race to the island. Rat Race is the largest active event organiser in the British Isles, which has a community of over 40,000 members. We're also looking at how we can continue working with Strava and continue to evolve that partnership infrastructure. So if you're feeling pumped and I've left you inspired after a crazy few days at WTM and you feel like you need to come up for air, here's Sean Conway with a few tips on how to discover what you're made of in the island break. I hope to see you at the start line in 2020. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sean, and these are my tips for an adventure weekend. Try the local cuisine, grab and green. Find somewhere slightly adventurous to stay. Do something adventurous with a complete stranger. Hi. Let's go. That is so good. The ice cream, ready for the 20k run now. Oh no! Nailed it!
Well, thank you very much to both of you. I love, by the way, the complete stranger in that video. She looks so randomly unexpected that it's just brilliant. So yeah, great work on that partnership. I think it's really refreshing to see something that is slightly different, and yeah, working with a completely new channel and audience and really well defined there. So do we have any questions from the audience? Just put your hand up if you have a question. They are a very shy audience. So we've got a few questions on Slido. So let's give them another round of applause. Thank you very much. If you'd like to join back on the panel. So don't forget, you can ask questions on Slido, slido.com, and then put in the hashtag WTM19. So we'll be going to your questions a little bit later on. Now, our last but certainly not least panelist for today, sharing her story, is Rosie Arrowsmith. She's from Tastemade. I'm going to do the same because I was quite impressed how many people, it's certainly a lot more than 12% in this room that are using Strava. So obviously the tourism industry is very fit and healthy. Let's see if they also like food. So how many people have watched something on Tastemade or know of Tastemade? There we go. It's about 30%, but we'll get there, we'll get there. So please welcome Rosie to the stage. Rosie is going to share us all about your always-on content.
Thank you. Thanks.
Feeling like a ghost, staring at the stars. It doesn't matter the cost, 'cause everybody must be famous on common shots. So see you over a month. Doesn't matter the cost. Seems like everybody else. I think it could be me. The world's too small for me. Face up in your face. My face on every screen.
Hi, I'm Rosie. I'm Brand Partnerships Director at Tastemade. And if you don't know what Tastemade is, we're a global media company. We specialise in lifestyle content. And we generate over 2.5 billion views a month worldwide. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the platforms that we use in order to engage with our audience, and also why we choose the platforms that we're on. So when we started out with Tastemade 7 years ago, originally we wanted to be the biggest food publisher in the world, and we have achieved that in some markets, including the UK. But now we've branched out globally into travel and home and design, and the reason for this is because our audience simply demanded it. When we produced food content, they wanted to see travel content from there, and then we also then went into home and design because of that. We're pretty much in every market now, and our biggest office is in Santa Monica, where we started. London is our second biggest in terms of content production. We're also absolutely massive in South America. Brazil is one of our biggest channels there. And then in Asia, in China, last month, we hit 500 million views, which is amazing. In terms of how we find our audience, it may surprise you that we deprioritized our website, and the reason for this is that our audience find our content on social. And in order to find our content on social, we have to work with platforms to make it successful. Social has always been the predominant channel for us, and that can be on any platform, and it really depends what market we're in. We've always been consumer and insight-led, and because we're only 7 years old, we're able to really apply that learning to everything that we do at Tastemade, whether it be to produce the content or which platform to put that on. This is a snapshot of our audience. They skew slightly more female. They are mostly millennial. They earn 2 times more than the average 18 to 34-year-old. They're willing to pay a bit more for quality, and they turn to us for recommendations. It's firstly really important to look at how our audience use their platforms, and for us it's mobile first for every decision. If we take the travel booking decision as an example, this is how I booked my trip to Oslo earlier this year for my trip with Nick. And it's completely non-linear, and it's really important to think about not how we think an audience behave, but how they actually behave. So for me, when I went on this trip, I firstly looked at Facebook and YouTube for inspiration on Oslo. I then went to Instagram and looked at the Oslo hashtag. I then looked at some influencers that I like and checked out their stories to see what was happening on the ground there. Then I looked at Instagram TV for some longer form content. Then I went to Pinterest and saved some itineraries. And then I made my own Google Doc, which I then took with me on the trip. So there's no linear way in order to book a trip for our audience, and it's really important for travel destinations particularly to acknowledge that and not rely heavily on a website. In terms of what our priorities are as a business, originally it was to get more views because we wanted to grow our audience. But now it's more about meaningful action because there are so many platforms and we want to really engage with our audience when we speak to them online. The way that we do this is firstly by looking closely at the formats that we produce. So this is an example of a format called a hands-on recipe. It's one of our most viral formats. Here we found that people were really starting to engage with much more premium content and that they wanted to see classic cocktail recipes. So we merged the two of those pieces of insights together to produce this piece of content. And we really felt that this sat best on Instagram. So that's where we put it. And we got loads of engagement because of that decision. Then we took our Spotlight format, which is a travel format that we do, And here we found again that people were really starting to engage more with our premium content. And that's great to know because it means that we can start to push more investment into premium content instead of more socially led formats. We thought that this would sit best on Facebook Watch because it's a long form platform, and we were correct because we got more engagement from it. Pinterest is now one of our biggest platforms, but it really didn't start out that way. So when Pinterest first started out, it was very static, and it didn't really sit with Tastemade's values. We're a video-based company. When Pinterest then introduced video, we made the decision to take down all of our static pins and re-upload in video, and it massively paid off for us because we hit 45 million views last month on Pinterest in the UK alone, and that really just shows how important video is for us as a company. But also, the most important thing that we found was that people really started to engage with the content because that's what they expected to see from us. And I think that's a really interesting learning to take away, is that when you go onto a platform, you must make sure that the content you put on there reflects you as a brand. This also helps us to work with other brands. So my job is to work with advertisers on our platforms to utilize them in the best way to reach their KPIs. For Stella, they really wanted to look at how they could align themselves with premium food eats. So we produced a co-branded board called Elevated Eats, both on our platform and on theirs. And this was really cool because we also did other content on other platforms, but this was specifically designed for Pinterest. And they took the decision as a business not to create a website to drive people to, but to use this as their hub for all of their marketing communication around this particular project. And it really paid off because they were chasing where their audience was instead of expecting them to come to them on a website. When we consider new platforms, we go through quite a rigorous process. These are two platforms that we're currently considering being on. TikTok is a really interesting platform. It's very short form. It's actually moving away from what we're going towards, which is longer form content. But we can't ignore the fastest growing social platform in the world. So we're currently looking at that. The second is Twitch, which may surprise you, but actually is really big in the travel space now. A lot of influencers are on there and sharing their journeys around the Twitch platform. The questions that we ask ourselves as a media owner are fairly straightforward, but really important. So first of all, we think about what is the audience demographic? Is it the right audience for us? Does that platform hit the same brand values that we have? In 5 years' time, do we still want to be on there? Do we still want to be associated with the platform? And thirdly, do brands want to work with us on that platform? Do they want to be seen there? If we can't say yes to all of those, then we probably won't go on the platform. And it's really important to say no sometimes because going on to new platforms costs a lot of money. You have to hire people to do the content, you have to manage it, you have to make sure that you're constantly engaging with the audience. But more important than any platform is your own voice, and this is absolutely essential for being a media company particularly. We have to make sure that our voice is very true to ourselves. We go through these 5 key things every time we go onto a new platform, and if we don't hit at least one of them, then we've completely failed. So we always use this as our guide. One of the biggest platforms that we've recently gone into is Tastemade TV. This is really exciting for us. It's a long-form platform opportunity. We first went into this in the US with YouTube TV. It allowed us to test and learn whether our audience were engaging with long-form content before we took the leap into making our own full-blown production company around long-form content. Since then, our strategy has expanded quite far. In the UK, for example, we've just launched on Samsung TV. It's free to air to 5 million households and allows people to access our content immediately for free. Secondly, we're now on Amazon Prime in the UK, so all of our long-form content can be found there as well. What's been really exciting about this is that because we're using data and insights to back up our decision with platforms, we've grown our average watch time by 2 times over the last year. And that's because everything that we put onto the platform is backed up by data and insights. We also have an amazing marketing tool, which is our social platforms. So we took the decision to delay releasing long-form content simply because of this. We wanted to make sure that our audience knew what we were doing first, and then we can promote it to them and show them where the content is, because often what media platforms struggle with is that people don't know where to find the content anymore. And the way in which to do that is to have a clear strategy on social to drive people to the platform that it's on. Looking at the slate for Tastemade TV, it's really important that you amend it for each market. There's so many nuances in each market, and it's important to acknowledge that. So for example, in the US, we've just acquired Nadia's programming from the BBC and Jamie Oliver's programming from Channel 4 in order to show in the US, because we know that it will perform really well there. Data and insights also allows us to predict trends that we can then use for the platforms that we're on. 3 of the most consistent trends over this year and going into next year are probably quite obvious, but they really needed to be looked at in order for us to be successful. So the first is budget conscious. In the travel space, we found that our audience are really conscious about the money they're spending on travel. It's not necessarily that they're spending less, it's that they're traveling more, and therefore they need each trip to be cheaper in order to fit more trips into the year. Airbnb have found a 300% increase in budget travel, so this is really a big piece of data. Second of all, video plays a really big role in the travel making decision, which I'm sure you all know. But for us, we've found that 3 to 6 months out from the trip is the biggest potential opportunity for any travel destination. We find that our audience in this window are really starting to think about where they're going to go next, and that's the opportunity for you to utilize video. And third, the big word is obviously sustainability. And for us, this is a really important subject for us to talk about as a business, as well as with brands. We needed to make sure that before we started to program content around sustainability, that we as a company were behind those values. And that's something that we've really been working on in the background.
I'm Marco. I'm Alex, and we're the Vagger Brothers. We love travel and a little brotherly competition. So we're crossing the globe and putting our local trivia skills to the test to see who's spending 24 hours living like a baller and who's pinching pennies. This is Basic versus Baller.
So based on that insights and data, we created a program called Basic versus Baller. The aim of this program was to show that you can travel at any cost. You can go and spend loads of money in a destination, or you can travel on a shoestring. You'll have very different experiences, but they're still experiences. And this really, really worked. We saw our longest ever average watch time of 17 minutes, which is incredible considering that the episodes are up to 10 minutes long. So for me, it's all about understanding what the audience want to see and then responding to it. If we look at the Tastemade UK audience, there are a few key things that we learned about sustainability. First of all, 2 in 3 of people who watch our videos aim to buy the product that we suggest, which is a really high number, and it made us feel quite responsible for the content that we were producing, because we're essentially getting people to buy things. Secondly, our audience are 2.4% more likely to be interested in learning about sustainability, and therefore we know that they want to learn more about how they can help themselves to be more sustainable. And finally, they're the most likely people out of a group of friends to try something new, so they are the influencers within their friendship groups. But if we're going to tackle a subject like sustainability for ourselves or with clients, it's really important that storytelling is at the heart of that, because the word sustainability is now kind of an alienation word. We struggle with what it means. Nobody knows how to start being more sustainable, and therefore it's important to take small steps through storytelling. What I mean by storytelling with brands is really getting to the heart of what those brands actually mean and what they value the most. So if we look at these tourist boards and travel companies, we really worked hard with them and interrogated what it was that they wanted to say to their audience about the company. REI came to us in the US. REI are a travel cooperative, and they're also an outdoor adventure clothing company. They really wanted to talk about how living an outdoor lifestyle is not necessarily about being an intrepid adventurer, but actually just being outside is a really good life well lived. The way that we responded to this was by getting them to partner with community projects in New York to make New York a greener space. And we produced a long-form series around this that sat on Tastemade TV as well as other social platforms in order to drive people to really engage with being outdoors.
We're not the only living things on this earth.
Everyone's constantly moving, constantly going.
We kind of have our blinders on.
What they call the concrete jungle.
And it overwhelms people.
The city is intense.
Parks and green spaces
show people, that
we get to utilize the earth more.
One with nature.
Even though you may hear planes flying overhead, it creates communities.
It's a way to escape the chaos that the city is.
Il cielo è grande sopra la città, è tutto braccia come il mare, insieme a te il sole sorge per noi, sì.
Today we're going to do some restoration work here at the shoreline. And as you start picking up stuff, check in on one another and see if we're ready to kind of move on to another section. Ideally, pie in the sky is that when you hear in New York City, you think green. Where you see a building, you see green. Where you see a bike path, you see grass. That it's we're no longer isolated into these little patches where parks used to be, but that we're really integrated into the city, and that every New Yorker is fighting for their community to be greener. We're the Big Apple with a massive tree right behind it. My name is Anel Cabrera-Mars, and I'm the Senior Director of Engagement and Programming for a New York Restoration Project.
That campaign did extremely well. We got 7.2 million unique viewers. We lifted brand affinity by 8%, and we lifted purchase intent of REI clothing by 4%. And I think the reason why it was so successful was because it was so authentic to both brands, not just theirs or not just ours. We really worked hard with them to understand what was important to them and how that was going to come across. Our audience is so aware of advertising, and it's something that Strava talked about earlier. We made the decision a long time ago not to do display advertising with clients because our audience just don't enjoy it. They don't find it valuable. What we really find valuable is co-branding, and that's what works for our clients. So just to sum up our learnings about platforms, first of all, be really smart with data and insights. Data and insights are essentially just words and numbers if you don't use those properly. Hire people in if you don't know what data and insights mean. Think about how you're going to use them in order to progress your business. Secondly, follow your audience. Think about where they are going to be, not where you think they are. Again, if you don't know the answer, then try and find people that do. But don't be a sheep. It's super expensive to go onto a new platform. It's really important that you consider the pros and the cons of it. For example, we spent a lot of money on Snapchat in the UK where we didn't find a huge return on investment, so we decided to deprioritize it. Create local authenticity. It's really important that as we become more globalized as businesses, that we really remember that there are nuances in every market and that we acknowledge those. And finally, practice what you preach. Really stay true to your brand. I know that it's really tempting to just go for that reach number and the impressions number, but actually what's really important is how you appear on those platforms. Always remember that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rosie. So I'm going to invite you to come and join us back on the panel. So we've got lots of questions coming in. That was very, very interesting. And we've got some great questions coming in, so we're going to go straight to them. And don't forget that if you have a question for our panel, you can send it on slido.com, and then the hashtag is WTM19. So do send your questions and we will put them to the panel. So let's see, we've got a question here from Meryl and Evelina. How was the challenge participant transition from Strava platform to a bookable experience? It was an e-commerce landing page or OTA. So I guess they want to know about how you measured the conversion and bookings there.
Okay, so once all the challenge participants had come through to the inspirational hub on jersey.com, we tracked this community basically using a database, so we can then remarket to these people down the line, and we have built up a real focused database focused on the sports and active product. But essentially we then gave them a code, so whether they went to use that code with the marathon partner, the Standard Chartered Marathon, or whether they used that code with the hotel partner, so then we were able to track exactly how many then went on to convert. And I think it's one of the things that we've taken into account is that naturally although the campaign ran in June, and we had an increase in off-island participation year on year, actually there's probably going to be some legacy as we move into 2020 with the number of marathon runners, because undertaking a marathon is quite a big deal. So basically I think there'll be some legacy as we move into next year to kind of look at, okay, what was the impact from that activity? So it's important to measure that in future as well when we look at the longer term conversion or impact from the activity.
Great. Well, another question which kind of follows up from that is actually how you came across Strava. So what was the thought process, and other questions about how to work with Strava. So I'll let you answer this as well, Evelyn.
Well, it's an interesting one from our case. We've worked with a photographer, content curator behind the work we've done with Sean Conway. He specialises in the curation of active and sports-led content. He's a guy called James Carnegie, and we'd identified them as a partner for a while, and I'd said to James, I'm really interested about working with Strava, and he said, oh, it's great because I've been working with them on a campaign. So it was really positive that he was then able to introduce me to Strava, and that's really how everything began, really.
Yeah, so James do a lot of photography for us as well. But just going back to the conversion point and getting people from Strava to actually take it the next step down the funnel, is that for all our sponsored challenges, we have this transition where partners can choose to offer a reward for those that go on and complete it. We have partners that ask our athletes to ride 300 kilometers in a month, which is a big achievement. So there's a great moment there where you can offer a reward for someone that has gone above and beyond. And when someone's done something difficult, they have a strong perception of like wanting to reward themselves. So it's a great moment to capture, and that's when we pass them over from the in-app experience to, in this case, Jersey, so that people can complete a landing page form and enter their email address if they want to opt in to receive the reward. So it's essentially like a highly qualified audience and a database build that you're getting.
I have another question related to that, and then we'll move on to some other topics. So somebody's asking about integration of Strava into other sites. They particularly mentioned WordPress, but just generally, is Strava something that can be integrated into other sites? Is that something that might come in the future?
I'm not sure. It depends on what kind of integration that looks like. I think Strava's focus for 2020, like the immediate future, is 100% on like athlete value and perceived value of the platform and how athletes are enjoying it. I think we know that if we nail the athlete experience, everything else will come. So I think we will be going really hard on like developing our subscription model and so on. So I'm not sure if I have a good answer to that one.
Yeah. Fair enough. I think your message was really clear, actually, that you're relentlessly focused on your core user base, which is the athletes, and providing them with the optimum experience. And I guess that comes down to the brand choice about who you work with and the experience that you provide there. So that's what makes it such a strong platform.
100%, and I think we are very much like, we really want to protect that. We know that that's quite unique. We see the way that some other platforms have gone in sort of user engagement and satisfaction with them, and we really want to make sure, I think we have something quite unique that we want to keep.
Great. So a question for you, Lottie. There's some curiosity about what alternative channels you would perhaps thought about alongside Alexa, and what other channels are sort of keeping you curious in Contiki. We heard a bit about TikTok as well, which and also Reddit. There's a lot of questions about Reddit, and if anyone's really dipped into that and explored that. So I guess this is a question for all of you, but perhaps I'll ask you to kick off with that.
Well, specifically with Alexa, I'll start there. So we did explore Google Home as well. To be honest, it's just to do with market share at the moment. So Alexa still has the monogamy of the sort of market, I guess. However, I think sort of the key thing to think about with other channels, as Rosie said, is sort of how long it's going to be around and what the brand value is. I guess we're a little bit different, being a youth brand. So, our audience is always the first ones to jump on these channels. So TikTok, we are on TikTok, we've recently launched. But I think it's really important that you launch with a real value and you give the platform over to the people who are using it. So we've just launched TikTok. But as a hunt to find a TikTok content creator. So people are submitting their videos and the winner will travel with us for a year as our creator. So it's kind of a clever play that they're the ones who use the platform. They know what works on the platform, and we're sort of handing it over to them to sort of engage audiences and young people. How long it'll be around, we don't really know. But at the moment it is, the fastest growing social media platform. So that's our next big one. I think voice is a little bit different because obviously voice assistants are growing. They're starting to become in cars and they're starting to become more part of everyday life. But I think voice in general is something which is to stick around in terms of making sure our website's optimized for voice, making sure our content's discoverable, and not necessarily just around the actual skills such as the packing guide, but just making sure we're optimized and prepared.
And some people are asking about how your users and audience find out about your app, because that's perhaps one of the biggest challenges. You need to be top of mind for the user, right?
Yeah, so I think when we launched it, it was sort of twofold. One was around awareness and kind of being innovative in that space and sort of talking to young people who are using these apps on a day-to-day basis. So we're doing the usual PR, owned channels, a bit of paid media, and all of that. But I guess the other sort of element with the packing guide is we can push it to people who have booked but not yet traveled with us as well. So we're using things like our closed Facebook groups and our internal comms to try and sort of enrich our travelers' experience with the brand. So it's kind of plays the role for people who are already booked with Contiki, but obviously you can use it if you haven't.
So it's not primarily about acquiring new audiences?
No, I think it can do both at the same time. So, it obviously does have a good role in terms of getting conversations started, raising awareness, particularly in the US, of who Contiki are, but also has an engagement advocacy role with our existing travelers.
How about with yourself, Rosie? How far into new channels like TikTok and older channels like Twitch have you and Reddit have you actually explored and sort of tested see how things go?
So with TikTok, we're fairly far down the line in the US. We think it's a good platform in the US. We're not sure about the UK yet. We're still testing it. We're still meeting with them to find out what the benefits are for us. It's a really important decision before we go onto any platform. In terms of other technologies, voice is also really important for us. It's something that we've been looking into for the last 4 years or so. We have ventured into voice for partner campaigns. We did a podcast with Visit Seattle last year, which performed really well, but we still haven't cracked how we're going to do that as a business long term, and it's something that we're really looking into with Google particularly, actually. So yeah, watch this space.
There's some soul searching there about what the core business is focused on there.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Catherine at Face Marketing. I'm sure she will appreciate that. Small plug. She says, how does Rosie deal with optimum frequency of reposting evergreen content to ensure maximum ROI? And does she use models to plan this?
Okay.
Oh, and that question disappeared as soon as I asked it.
It's quite a complex question because it depends what content it's for. So if it's our editorial, we don't necessarily monetize editorial content if it's been posted more than once, because we just don't really see the benefit. If it's commercial, then the assets go to the client after they leave our platform, so they can do with them what they will for a year. So we wouldn't monetize that content beyond there. So I don't think that's really answered the question, but...
Sort of. Okay, so question for all of you about voice, because it's been the hot topic of the last couple of years, and some really huge anticipation as to what it's going to do, how it's going to transform, and how it's going to change everything in terms of how we communicate. My own personal feeling would be that I use Siri on a day-to-day basis, but it hasn't transformed my life. You've obviously ventured into this. I don't know if for the other brands and channels this is something you've thought about and where you see it going.
Yeah, I think I'll answer first. I think that's one of the problems we have with voice, is that right now, if I take myself, I have a Google Home, but I use it predominantly for music, to get the weather forecast, and probably get a recipe. I don't use it as an integral part of my life yet. And I think that's the problem that we're having, is how does it take that next step into becoming part of your everyday routine? And before that happens, and before people really understand how to use the products, it's quite difficult to create something when people aren't going to necessarily use it. So that's where we are at the moment. We're just trying to develop how that would work.
I think we've got this huge tendency in the sort of branding and marketing field to see every new channel as a new audience, a new opportunity, and something we just have to jump into and go for it. So actually it's very interesting, because Strava it's a tool, right? So you're serving your community, your users, and you're providing them with something which is going to enhance their experience. And I guess this is often where new iterations in the technology field are moving, is actually enhancing and that kind of utility value. How do you use and see voice at Strava?
So I think we've been talking about content creation here a lot, and I think we're probably less content creation and more activity creation. One of the stats that we look at is how much time people spend not looking at Strava, instead being active, and it's around 50 times more time active outside than in the app. And that's what we're focusing on to drive.
It's a good figure, right?
Yeah, it's a good figure, and we kind of want to see that going up. So voice doesn't have a given place in that at this point in time. It's so much around the GPS and tracking and stats around that. But who knows in the future? Like, I think it will be interesting to see as voice develops where it will fit.
And is like Siri, for example, is that integrated into Strava?
It's not at the moment, but I can see, like, it would be so cool in the future if you could kind of get up in the morning and say, you know, Siri, what kind of session should I do today? What would be optimal to get the most out of my training?
Or even better, how can I continue my Jersey runcation?
Exactly. How do I hit how do I beat my PB at the marathon?
So Meryl, maybe it's sort of moving this into a slightly different direction. How do you see new mediums generally at Visit Jersey? There's so many opportunities now. One of the biggest trends right now is on-demand TV. Rosie, you spoke about it with Amazon Prime and Apple TV and all these different channels now that we can put content in. What's your take on all the new channels and where Visit Jersey should be thinking about?
So I think it comes back to smart distribution, which is about us looking at sharing our content at the right place at the right time with the right message. There are a lot of content distribution channels out there, and I guess it's how it comes back to that product channel fit. Does this fit with my market and resource? I think we have to have that measured approach really. Going back to voice, it's a really interesting one for us. I guess I'm looking as an observer on the outside as to how things will evolve. I see there's potential from a customer service perspective, certainly, and it's something we've been working with our industry partners in destination to look at what the potential is and take them on that journey, because I guess the risk is with all these things you can potentially think, okay, it's not for me right now, you bury your head under the sand and then you're playing catch up afterwards. So we're looking at working with a small group of those who have appetite to learn a little bit more about the potential, because certainly when we look at the role of these types of channels, whether it's AI to enhance the customer experience, we need to be match fit to embrace these technologies and just have it on the radar, so it's not something that we weren't prepared for as such.
Now, this was first collaboration of this kind for you. What do you take away from this, thinking about the coming years and where you can see future opportunities? Are you likely to seek out more kind of niche and audience-focused collaborations in the future? What would you say makes a really good collaboration?
Completely. It's something that it's given us confidence to do more of these types of partnerships in the future. I think one of the key takeaways is that with Strava, you have a very engaged audience, and I think that's key when you're looking at distribution channels. It's important that you're communicating with people who are really passionate, and it's something we've been considering as we move into 2020 and look at our plans. And it's funny because obviously I'm sitting here pregnant, and there's apps that I now use in my day-to-day life, things like Avia, Pregnancy Plus, and I log into that app daily, and I think, okay, for example, for a baby moon product niche or market opportunity, there's opportunities there, because you have to be communicating with people where they're logging in. There's got to be that motivation for them to check in, rather it just be something that you could ignore in the background, because we are bombarded as consumers, and there's lots of apps out there. It's how to make that our app or that platform part of your day-to-day life. So I don't know, if you were in a wine destination and, for example, you were very much focused on wine tourism, there's things like Vivino, which I'm sure would be like a natural fit for someone who's a connoisseur about wine. And I guess it's finding that product channel fit. So we'll be doing more to find the right partners as we roll out our product activity in 2020.
I think the challenge often that destinations and travel brands have is that audience size, and whether those channels have a big enough audience. So you mentioned something like Vivino. What's the engaged audience size, and is that going to get you enough traction that you actually look for? Well, I guess a closing question I have for all of you is, do you see a potential to collaborate with each other? What are your creative ideas if you just kind of wipe the slate clean and imagine that you don't have PR and legal leads? What would you do? Where do you see opportunities? We see across every industry sometimes really, really unique collaborations. I think H&M are a great example of a brand that looks for really interesting design collaborations, and I definitely don't think we do this enough in this industry, where we could be doing crazy stuff. So any thoughts, ideas?
Well, we've already worked together, Lottie and I.
Oh, there you go.
So that's happened. But yeah, I mean, I think because we're such a young media company, we have the ability to partner with people in a different way. It's not always a money transactional situation, and I think that's really important going forward, because other companies can bring us benefits that we might not have ourselves, and we don't live in that world anymore where it's just transactional. So it's important to partner with people, for sure.
And I think from our side, it's understanding what our audience wants. So obviously food goes hand in hand with kind of what content works on our channels and what we know young people are looking for. So the storytelling and the content is obviously the obvious one. But to the point of our podcast, which we launched, we partnered with Visit Scotland on one of those episodes. They didn't really want to commit to a whole podcast series, so it just gave them the opportunity to sort of tap into one episode, tell a story, test the platform and the channel. And that's something sort of we're doing with tourist boards in an always-on capacity. So providing the channel and then letting them sort of get involved if they want to.
Any thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say that for those that have been on or are on Strava, like routes and segments and like the local experience is very important. Like people go out and they run their usual run route and they see how fast they can run that over and over again. Who of their neighbors they will be beating on the 1K stretch of road. And I think there's a real link to how we travel. Like there is like a real need for me, for instance, if I go to, I don't know, Helsinki in Finland, like I don't have my normal routes, like I don't know where to go and where to run. And I think there's a really interesting opportunity around maybe something that's route based, or like, you know, if you go traveling to this place and you're this kind of athlete or whatever, like what are the routes that are out there?
Sort of discovery.
Yeah, so content piece, but more around like routes for travelers that has certain interests.
That sounds like a great idea. So that's actually moving into the product field, and I'm thinking, you know, taste-made restaurants, that would be amazing.
Overlay it with,
So I'm looking forward to seeing some interesting collaborations. Maybe you can find a Top Chef open pop-up restaurant, and you can invite me to the first one there. That sounds really good. So I guess, you know, we have to be really open-minded as the channels we work with, the opportunities we jump into, and not always see everything as this kind of immediate kind of large-scale mass audience, but also see the niche, see the potential. Maybe just as a closing note, I know that Contiki, one of the strengths in doing something like this is also the PR value that you can get from it, right?
Totally.
So it's maybe not completely how we think when we think about digital content, but PR still has a huge role to play.
PR still has a huge role to play, and particularly I think with more niche PR as well, and like youth space PR. And I think it just, you know, we are a young brand. We've always been very innovative as a brand, so it's important for us to sort of stay innovative and be doing these things. And that's why we were really keen to make sure it threads through everything else we do, and that it doesn't just become a PR initiative, because obviously that is a massive opportunity, but you know, we want to make sure that it lives on after that.
Great. Well, thank you very much to all of you. Let's give them a round of applause. They've been a really great panel. So Lottie, Meryl, Evelina and Rosie, thank you very much for joining. They'll be around to answer any questions you have.
Thanks.